When the humans got to the battlefield, they started killing aliens with the cold anger that only humans have. The horrible Zargonians were about to destroy the whole Kralax force just a moment ago. Dozens of proud Kralax ships were destroyed by constant enemy fire, leaving only floating wrecks, bodies sticking out of the water, and rubble. As reports of damage came in, showing that weapons were down, shields were failing, and there were holes in the hull on all decks, Captain Zargok gripped his command center in a grim despair. They were not as good as they were armed or had any other choices. Zargok opened his mouth to order a full retreat to get back any pieces of his destroyed fleet that could be salvaged. Suddenly, there was a new, deep voice on the comm line. "There you have it. I'm Captain Jason Reeves of the United Earthship Defiant. Kralax, we hear you. Help is on the way. Wait for help to arrive." A huge dreadnought made of people fell from the warp. The Zargonian ships are already being hit by cannon fire. It's possible that the Kralax didn't fall today after all. As long as those people-killing machines were around to make things fair. On his command chair, Emperor Zarthon sat back with a sneer on his scaly face as he watched the weak Kralax fleet fall apart under a hail of plasma torpedoes. He was finally ready for this moment. Now was finally the time to take over the Kralax lands. For today, the reptile ruler had carefully planned everything. Every bit of money that the Zorgonian government could get had been spent on the Imperial war machine. Teams of the smartest experts from Zorgonia worked hard to make shielding technology that could handle anything less than a supernova. Missiles that could split countries were being made in factories that made weapons. Huge ships that blocked out the stars were put together in shipyards. Zarthon saw the results of his work in the damage that was coming up on his screen. With every hit, Kralax ships broke into clouds of metal pieces. Their own fire didn't do much damage to the Zorgonian defenders, though. It was like seeing bugs try to get rid of a blast furnace. Zarthon's face lit up with a smile. Not long after, the Kralax would be just a footnote in the past of the places he took over. A warning to the rest of the galaxy about what happened to people who stood up to Zorgonian power. When his censor officers spoke up, the Emperor was about to turn his chair around to accept a chalice of Mammonian wine from a mistress. "Your Excellency, a new contact has come to the battlefield with marks and an electronic identity that we have never seen before." Zartan turned around and went back to the main show, forgetting about the wine. There, coming out of warp, was a huge dreadnought that was much bigger than his biggest ships. It had so many guns on its strangely angular body that it could arm a whole fleet by itself. "What the hell is that?" Zarthon made a noise. "Call them out right away." The comm officer hit her on the desk. "There you have it. I'm Captain Jason Reeves of the United Earthship Defiant. You Zorgonian jerks made a big mistake when you attacked the Kralax. How would you like to fight someone who can fight back?" When the person was done talking, the new warship launched a full alpha strike on the closest Zorgonian vessel. The target was hit by missiles, mass drivers, and beam weapons. The frigate's shields quickly broke, which was impossible. The shell broke apart like cheap plastic. It scared Azerton to see the human ship tear deeper into his lines. His prized fleet was cut through by their weapons like a force demon's claws through flesh. Even though Zorgonian shields had been improved for decades, they could only take 1 or 2 hits before they broke. He jumped off his throne and stomped over to the part of the bridge where his gunnery teams were working. The battery leader was handcuffed on the back of the head. Zartan yelled, "Get it together. I want all forward lances to fire right away on that horrible human being." Zarthon felt like his stomach was sinking like a stone as his ship slowly turned to face the human ship. He had a sudden realization that hit him like a rock. He was very wrong about what to do. He had no idea how dangerous these people would be. His kingdom had finally met an enemy that could be as strong as it was. One of Jason Reeves's hands was tied behind his back as he stood on the bridge of the Use Defiant. He looked very focused. There was a lot of chaos on the main view screen because ships were fighting very hard. With every exchange of fire, hulls flared and blew up. The Krulix fleet was in bad shape. Their order was broken, and ships were quickly disappearing. "What's the situation?" Jason barked. His first cop looked at her computer. "The Zorgonian force is getting ready to attack. There are 70% fewer Krulax ships than there used to be. At this rate, they won't last much longer." Jason gave a grim nod. The Krulax were in trouble when Earth picked up their faint emergency call. There had been heated arguments at Terran High Command about whether to get involved. People were still getting used to living in space, and many people in the Admiralty didn't want to get involved in an alien war. But Jason had pushed hard for someone to step in. He knew that the Krulax was important for strategy. They were known for being hardworking and focused on trade. They had a network of colonies and mining sites spread out across this area of space. Plus, they shared a border with the new colonies on Earth in the Oort cloud. They were in danger if the Zorgonian Empire, which wants to expand, killed them all and took their land. Jason had talked a lot about how dangerous Zargonian violence was and how important it was to protect a species that couldn't defend itself. Those points of view won the day. The Defiant was sent to the Krulax home system at flank speed, just as the Zargonians started their attack. Jason gave himself a quick fist pump as he watched his guns destroy the Zargonian ships. It had been the right choice to send the used Defiant. The Earth's space forces had the most advanced ship. It was a sleek, dangerous dreadnought that was better than anything else on the battlefield. The Defiant's triple-armored skin didn't care about the few laser blasts that came from its own weapons. Neutron torpedoes and banks of quantum phase guns tore through Zorgonian shields like they were made of paper. The lizards had never seen human guns before, so they didn't know how to fight back. The sensor officer told the captain that the Zorgonian flagship was changing direction and coming straight at us. Jason sat up straight in his command chair. It looked like the Zorgonian leader finally understood that people were the real danger. He planned to stop the Defiant from fighting. "Helm, turn around to face them, but keep going." Jason told them not to draw a gun on us. The huge dreadnought fired its maneuvering jets and swung its prow toward the Zorgonian warship that was coming at it, all the while its guns kept firing at the enemy fleet. Jason pressed the button on his chair that said "Calm." "Sarah, I need you to get the neutron weapons ready for a full attack. If you have to, take power away from the shield grid at the back. I am going to hit that jerk hard when he gets close." No changes were made to the original sentence as it was written. As she worked to follow his directions, she hunched over her console and her fingers were flying. As the Zorgonian flagship closed in on them, firing from a dozen different holes in the hull, the bridge tensed up like a spring. It looked bad, with a spiked front end and a huge back end that lit up a scary red. It started shooting bright yellow energy bolts as soon as it got close enough to hit. It was almost twice as big as the Defiant. The human shields flared, but they held up against the attack, dimming only slightly. Somewhere deep inside the Defiant, a low rise began to form. As the neutron guns turned on, capacitors sucked up every extra watt of power from the reactor to power their magnetic accelerator coils. Jason looked at the holographic range sign and told the Zorgonian ship in his mind to get closer. As the icon moved closer to the best shooting position, he tightened his grip on the armrests. "Nearly there." I roared, "Fire!" From the Defiant's front gun ports, a bright blue-white beam shot out. It hit the leader of the Zorgonian race straight on. The alien ship's shields flashed as they tried for a second to block the neutron stream but failed badly. The beam went straight through the middle of the huge ship, making the armor, decks, and crew all disappear. It came out of the other side as a spray of molten metal. The two halves of the warship that had been cut in half hung still in space for a moment. Then, a series of explosions inside them tore them apart, sending pieces of debris all over the void. As the Zorgonian flagship broke apart, cheers broke out on the Defiance bridge. But Jason quickly stopped anyone from celebrating too soon with a sharp hand motion. Even though they only cut off the snake's head, the rest of the Zorgonian fleet was still out there, and Earth didn't have any more help nearby. He hit the way to talk to the fleet. To all Kralax ships, this is Captain Reeves. Form up on the Defiant and keep your protective sphere shape. Damaged Kralax cruisers and frigates, with holes in their bodies letting air escape, moved to form a tight circle around the human dreadnought. They stood together in a strong defense position, which let the Kralax ships hide behind the Defiant's shields while adding their extra firepower to its own. Jason looked at Sarah and his face hardened into the focused look that had won him the command and seen him through 100 fights. Figure out how to fire the Kralax using tactical coordinates. We need to cut down on the Zorgonian population and get them to split up so that they can send information about targets and the best ways to attack. Sarah was already hunched over her computer, talking quickly over the comm with Krennic's bridge officers. She gave him a quick nod to show that she understood what he said. Jason sat back down in his chair and watched the Zorgonian force get ready for another pass. They were hurt, but they weren't defeated. It didn't matter that their flagship was destroyed, the lizards still had a lot more members than the human Kralax defense line. There would be a lot of hitting going on until one side had enough and stopped fighting. And humans were the best in the galaxy at fighting long, bloody wars. For every inch of room, they would make the Zargonians pay with blood. It would be the Defiant who led the way. Lut Kotzrau held onto the armrests of his command chair as his damaged ship was hit by more plasma torpedoes. Broken pipes let out smoke, and the lights flickered in a scary way. He coughed and looked at his view screen through the fog. It only showed the twisted debris of Kralax ships, which were once proud ships but were now just drifting hulks because of the relentless Zorgonian attack. Kotzrau thought in a grim way, this is the end. The Kralax fought hard, but they were just not strong enough. They came with a huge fleet and weapons that could cut through Kralax shields like a hot knife through butter. Kotzrau had seen his friends fall one by one, their ships turning into stars for a short time before going out for good. He looked like he was going to join them soon. His guns were empty, and his engines were not working. He could only look death in the eye and wait for the final blow. Suddenly, his sensor officer yelled over the noise of metal groaning and air leaking. "Sir, a new contact is coming out of warp. It's really big." When Kotzrau turned his head to look, he thought he saw another Zorgonian monster coming to kill them. Instead, he saw a ship that was unlike any other he had seen. It was sleek and dangerous, with sharp edges and gun batteries that bristled. And it was so big that it was bigger than the biggest Zorgonian battleships. Kotzrau was amazed as the new ship fired its weapons, sending out beams of light that burned through Zorgonian ships like paper. A lot of damage was done to powerful vessels that had been able to handle the best the Kralax had to offer. It was like seeing a kid break up toy ships. His comm officer told him, "Incoming transmission from the unknown vessel." Her voice was shaking. Kotzrau gave her a blank nod to let her think about it. The screen showed the face of a man with sharp features and eyes that seemed to be on fire inside. The person said, "This is Captain Jason Reeves of the United Earthship Defiant." His voice was cool and sure. "We are with the Kralax in their fight against Zargonian violence. All the ships are coming up on us. We'll be in charge." Kotzrau's jaw dropped. The people. Of course, he had heard stories about them. Everyone did. A new race in the galaxy, but they were very technologically advanced and had ships and weapons that were better than anything the Kralax had. He had always thought those stories were made up because someone had drunk too much Altarian whiskey. There is no way that a new species could be that strong and brave. However, Kotzrau saw how wrong he was when he saw the human ship, the Defiant, be used. It moved through the fight like a graceful dancer, slipping between big Zorgonian ships and hitting with lightning speed. Its weapons cut through the enemy fleet like a scythe through wheat, leaving behind only a trail of flying debris. The crew. The communication link let Casserole watch them, and he was amazed at how focused and professional they were. They moved with a calm confidence that showed they had been trained a lot and been in a lot of fights. There was no fear or doubt, there was only a strong will to finish the job. When Casserole woke up, he yelled at his helmsman, "Take us into tight formation with the Defiant, match their maneuvers, and add our firepower to theirs." As the humans set up their perimeter, the Kralax ship sped forward and joined them. Other Kralax ships did the same, and the broken pieces of their once proud fleet came together to support this surprising savior. In shock, Casserole watched as Captain Reeves managed the confusing group of ships, both human and Kralak. The captain's orders were clear and to the point, and Casserole had never seen anything like his strategy before. He used the Defiant as a cover to block the most powerful Zorgonian fire, while the Kralax ships shot out to attack the enemy on the sides. It was an amazing show of fleet battle. Everything worked. Things were slowly but surely getting better in the fight. The Zorgonian approach slowed down and then stopped when they found a line of human and Kralax ships in front of them. Casserole let himself feel a drop of hope for the first time since the first Zorgonian rocket hit his ship. With these people by their sides, they might be able to do more than just make it through today. They might have a chance to win. He looked at the comm screen one more time and saw Captain Jason Reeves' face. In the middle of the chaos of war, he looked calm and determined. Even though Casserole still couldn't believe it, he quietly thanked the gods, his ancestors, and anyone else who was listening for the day that humans joined the Kralax in battle. He had a tighter grip on his armrests and turned his attention back to the battle. He was ready to fight with even more drive. This war began with the Zargonians, but the Kralax would end it with the help of the humans. Empire Zerfin screamed and stomped back and forth across the bridge of his ship, the Zorgonian fist of invasion. With each angry step, his clawed feet made grooves in the metal flooring. He could feel his anger building up inside him, ready to burst at any time. This attack had been his most important work, the result of years of careful planning and preparation. He thought that his army would be too strong for the Kralax and that their worlds and resources would be easy to take. Everything was going to be great until those damn people showed up. Zartan growled as he saw another one of his battleships go up in flames from a nuclear explosion. The burned and twisted debris slowly moved through the empty space in front of his screen. It was the same story everywhere he looked. Because of that one human dreadnought, his once proud fleet, which was the most powerful the Zorgonian Empire had ever put together, was being broken up ship by ship. Shields are now only 12% strong. Weapons not working, terrible damage to decks 7 through 12. "Emperor, we have to leave." A little lizard who was one of Zerthan's tactical officers but whose name he had never thought to learn begged from his console. Zartan charged at the police officer, killing him in his bloodshot eyes. "Pull out? Run away from these apes who just learned how to walk straight yesterday." The officer shook when the Emperor looked at him, but he kept going. "Your Excellency, our troops are being killed. The whole fleet will be lost if we don't pull back and reorganize." Zartan's hand moved for a moment toward the gun on his hip. It would be so easy to end this cowardly man's pain. No, though. If they wanted to win this fight, he needed all of their claws. They would turn it around. In the galaxy's history, Zarthan was the leader of the biggest and best power ever. Getting to the top of the food chain didn't mean he could run away at the first sign of trouble. Zarthan yelled at the captain, "Bring us around. Mark a direction for that ship with people. Send all of your power to the motors and forward shields." The people on the bridge looked at him like he had grown a second head, but no one dared to question what he was telling them. It moved slowly and ponderously as it swung its prow toward the used Defiant. The huge warship was pushed into the human guns by engines that were as hot as flames. "Sire," the comms officer said in a shaking voice, "the human ship is hailing us." Throw them out, Zarthan yelled. I have no desire to trade quips with animals. He leaned forward in his chair of power and dug his claws into the armrests. The Defiant got bigger and bigger on the view screen. Its sleek, predatory lines stood out against the Zorgonian ship's bulky, practical forms. As the distance shrunk, Zarthan could feel his heart beating fast in his chest. It was now or never. He would show these newcomers how stupid it is to go up against the Zorgonian Empire. They were going to be crushed and ground into dust by his heel, no matter what. It would cost him his last ship and his life. Zarthan growled, "Go after their bridge. I want to look that human captain straight in the eye as we destroy him." The gunnery teams rushed to do what was asked, aiming the few remaining operational turrets on the Fist of Conquest at the Defiant's command tower. As a hail of laser fire hit the human ship, its shields shimmered and cracked. The Defiant, on the other hand, wasn't happy to stay on the defensive. Its own guns let out a long burst of bright light that hit the Zorgonian flagship in the middle of the ship. As the ship shook and lurched, Zartan was thrown from his seat. There were loud alarms and the smell of burned insulation filled the air. Someone yelled over the noise, "Hull breach on decks 4 and 5. Zarthan pulled himself up and braced himself against his command panel. He could see the rebel turning and coming at him from the front through the smoke and sparks. That was it, the end. He didn't want to close his eyes, though. He wouldn't turn away. His name was Zarthan, and he was ruler of the Zargonians. He was ready to die with the same strong will that had helped him win 100 victories. He roared, "For the Empire." And his voice cut through the noise. The Defiant fired a full burst from its main guns at the same time that the Conquest's stern was hit by another explosion. Zarthan could feel the deck swaying under him. He saw the bridge crew thrown around like rag dolls, with controls going off in sparks and shrapnel. Then everything went away in a bright white light, and the world turned into fire. The story is now over. Please like and subscribe to my channel if you like this story and want to help me out. If someone says, "I like the story," I will heart every single one of them. Thanks for your time.